Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to video editing in DaVinci Resolve 1718. We're finally getting around to kind of graduating out of the beginner side of things to the more advanced side of things. We're now at section 12. Let me just bring us over here, and there we go. We're now at section 12, which is going to be all about text and titles and starting to work in Fusion, which is DaVinci's version of After Effects into things. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to get going this morning. So the first couple of 5 videos will just kind of all put into one thing because they're just so closely related. The first of which is, what we're doing today. Just bringing in some text and graphics and learning to animate it a little bit and backgrounding and learning how to get some better looking titles out of things. And then that's, of course, the rich text of things. And then we're just going to do some basic animation and some background. All right, so let's get after it. And here we go. And let me see if I can't get this. Let me just get rid of the media pool here. I'm going to pause this for a second. I'll be right back. Okay, so we are here at the end of our video, and this is what was set up in for the final for section 6 editing and section 12. So what we want to do here is first we're going to hit the X key, and that just puts a in and out on the top of this so that we can go back and play it. Second thing we want to do is we want to get rid of these cross dissolves here too. Get rid of that one and get rid of that one. And then we're going to open up the inspector over here. Highlight this, and we're going to open up the inspector over here. And we're going to make some changes to thank you for watching. Now this is just some basic rich text stuff, so I want to drop it down one. Thank you for watching. Let's come up and type in DaVinci. Hopefully I spell everything right. 18. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to put by CJ, that's me, and my last name. Okay, so there's some ways to start here. Let's do that. And let's highlight everything in this guy and then come down here and just align it. Okay? And then we can come down here to positioning, zoom, rotation, angle, all kinds of good stuff to do. But let's first try some line spacing. So I'm going to put this on the second line, the last of the second line, and play around with that to see how that starts to look. And that's kind of nice. So I move that out just a little bit. All right, so let's now go to the middle line here real quick. Let's give this a different color. In the book, he did yellow, so might as well do yellow because that turned out looking pretty good. And I just clicked on the color and came here and just clicked on a stock color just to keep it simple. And now we can, let's go over here. Whoops, my bad. Control Z to get that to, whoops. Now Shift Control Z to get that to come back. Maybe. There we go. All right, looking good. So let's come up here to DaVinci 18 and look around at what we can use for some different fonts here on this. So let's come back to some good old-fashioned things that we all love to use. Calibri. Can't go wrong with Calibri. And while we're there on that, we can do a little tracking on this and spread things out just a touch. Maybe increase the size just to, whoops, maybe not that much. Very nice. Maybe bring down our line spacing again a touch here. And let's, oops, I did that again. All right, let's highlight the second line. That's the yellow one here, and make sure that that stays in the second line. Uh, Maybe bold that. And then the last line down here, I'm not so important, so maybe we'll do some tracking on that here. And that sizing, let's drop that a little bit. And maybe I think we might be able to get rid of that. Let's come up here and put that at Calibri. And I think that I can put that on the far left side. How does that look? Not so hot, does it? Let's leave it like that. Okay, so much better than it was. All right, so the next part of this is that we can animate this whole thing in and out. And so, which means that we're gonna want to move our thing down here where everybody can see it. I'm gonna come over here to this guy and make it just a little bit bigger, but we want to be able to see it. And it looks like we already have some keyframes in here, maybe, or maybe not. Just to make sure that we got all of our keyframes and everything out of there, let's go through this. Just make sure that we don't have anything in there. I don't think we do. Okay. Doesn't look like it. Oh, okay. Looking good here. So let's, on this guy here, let's, what should we do first? We should first hit our semicolon. So if you guys want to see me go along with that, I'll bring the, I don't think you guys need to see, you already know what a semicolon is. If I put the keyboard here, it's going to cover a lot of this stuff. And uh, so we're first going to come up to transform here. And we're going to hit the semicolon, which is also the first frame. And that brings us there to that first editable frame of this title, okay? And then we're going to hit Shift and then the right arrow key, which brings us in 1 second. Let's go back to the first frame here real quick and time out how long this is. So that's 35. And we'll come over here to the end. That's 40. So that's about 5 seconds. So this is going to work out fine. Or close enough. First frame, boom. In a second, boom. And let's drop a keyframe here on the position mark. Okay. And then we're going to choose our Y and shift. And we're just going to move this whole thing up and out of the way. Okay. All right. And so that's our first. Oh, excuse me. That's not our first frame. That's not what I wanted to do there. Okay. So we got our first frame in. Let's make sure that it's where we want it. Sorry, my bad there. And then let's go back to first frame. And then move this out of the way. So shift, and we'll just scoot it up here with out of the way. We'll make sure that this is on 0 too, just so it's nice and straight here. And then we can right click this guy here, and we're going to come down and say smooth. And all right, we're looking good here. Okay, so that's a good start here. So here's our little guy here. So let's slow that down in here a little bit. Let's grab a hold of this. Oops. I want to keep that straight here. Control Z. back to straight, down on, see it's not, let me grab that little, come on. Okay, I'm going to pause this for a second and get it straightened out again. Okay, so this thing's being a little finicky and not letting me grab the slow thing as much as I would like to here. There we go. So there we come down here a little bit and make sure that we've got our shift engaged here. So now let's give it a quick play here and see how that looks. That looks pretty nice. All right, so the next thing we want to do here is we want to do another animation. And so let's go back a couple of keyframes. That's the first one back. And then we're going to say a second back from that. And we're going to come over here to the zoom and set a keyframe on that guy. Okay, so there's first keyframe on the zoom. And then we're going to go all the way out to the last frame, which is the quote marks, and just hit the last frame, bing, and turn this Y here into a 0. And let's see how that looks. Play the whole thing all the way through. So that's going to be Alt / or play around. All right, I'm thinking that looks pretty good, guys. And so the last thing we can do here that they were talking about is, well, first we can get rid of this. If you want to come down here and look at this guy and twirl this down here and look at the zooms on this guy here, I think that we can say zoom Y here, and we've got we can highlight this guy real quick, clink, and come up here and say zoom out. And that will smooth you notice that lines now is a little bit smoother. Anyway, let's click out of that and click out of that because we have it done. Let's have a look at it one more time with the zoom out. That's pretty nice, not too bad. All right, so the last thing we can do here is let's first off move the whole thing up to the, and then we're going to add a background here. So let me pause this again here real quick. Okay, just to catch you up here. So I came over to Effects, then I came over to Generators, and we're going to hit Solid Color and drag it down just so it matches things. Let's drag that out a little bit here, make sure that we're lined up nicely. And then we're going to highlight this guy and come down to Generator and then over to Color. And so let's choose and here they chose some blue color, which was pretty nice. So I'm just going to choose that guy. And let's play through this and see how it looks. Maybe we'll put a cross and fade there. All right, first frame. Boom. No. I don't know why it's not doing it. Okay, so let's come in from here. All right, so that's looking pretty decent. We got a different color background down there. We got some nice graphics, just to kind of recap, and that will take care of section 12 and the first 4 of the demonstrations. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. All right, back here with section 12, and we're going to do skill over here, skill number 128, how to use the scroll text. Does this sound a little bit boring? Yeah, it kind of does, but the instructor of this class showed us a little interesting trick that might spark some imagination. At any rate, so I've got this all set up like he did in his with these two guys. running around, jumping around, doing some simultaneous backflips. Okay, so let's say first frame on that, and we're going to come up to the effects uh, portion and click on that, and then come down to, where are we going to go here? Titles? Yeah, titles, and then down to scroll. And then you can kind of run through there and just see what's going to happen. So let's bring that down to here and then stretch it out to the length of that. The scrolling here is going to be the length of whatever, however long this clip is, that's going to be the length of the scroll on it. So let's highlight this guy, say first frame on it, and see how everything matches up. All right, not bad, first frame. Let's come over here, while this is highlighted, come over here and click on the inspector and change some of the scroll title stuff. I'm just going to pause this out and type some stuff in, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have typed in some stuff over here. I'm going to change its color. Let's do that real quick, just so it's something we can read against. Let's change that to like bright orange, or high visibility green anyway. And so let's just play that real quick, and let's hit X so we get our, maybe not, maybe X down here for that. It's not going to let me do it. At any rate, let's play it and see how this looks at the moment. Okay, we can sure see it well. And so let's have some fun with this. I'm just going to put this in kind of the middle here so we can see what's going on. Then I'm going to hit the transform key over here. And now let's grab a corner and bring this down and drag it back over here to this corner. Now notice that I didn't do any keyframes or anything on like this. I'm going to permanently stick it over here in this corner here, just so that we can kind of see what's happening. Maybe bring our size of the type up. Okay, so you notice it's a little hard to see right now. All right, so let's go back here. First frame in it. And we get a interesting little thing here. Ripple delete, that fixes that. First frame. Boom. Back over to here. Let me scoot that so we can see what's going on. Okay, so now that we have this sectioned out, so let's come down here to our background and bring the height of this up a little bit. That covers the interior of this. Maybe bring our width to match that out too, just a touch. The corner radius, that's fine. And now let's play this. Let's see how that looks. Hey, that's kind of cool. And you can read it nicely. All right, so we didn't really do anything special here other than just use the can scroll touch. This can scroll, brought it down, did a little typing in there. Unfortunately, it's not rich text, so there's not a lot you can do about it. You can't divide it out like we did the other one. It did do different fonts for each line. There's different anchors that you can do here if you want to, but mostly this was about you guys just seeing the fact that this doesn't have to be always boring, and you can do a quick little kind of flash commentary on something that's going to happen here. So one last time to try playing it. Let's play around. There it comes up. Okay, well, all right, well, at any rate, you guys got the idea here. Okay, so that's going to do it for, what skill was that? That was skill 128, and we'll see you guys here in the next one. We're going to start doing some fusion text, which is After Effects kind of stuff. All right, thanks, and we'll see you guys in just a second. Okay, so we're back here with section 12 here, which is text and titles within Fusion this time. And so we're going to do everything here, the next 5 or so. Introduction to Fusion Text tab, the rotation tabs, the transformer tab, the shading tab. What else here? And the last one is how to roll and scroll on that. So with your text, and then after that, there's some motion blur and stuff like that. But these 5 or 6 of them here really fit nicely together, as you will see in just a second when I bring this up here. Let me get the inspector out of the way. So here we are with these crazy guys hopping over the thing here and on the stairwell. Aphasia. Let's come up to effects and over to generators and come down to solid color. And let's put in a solid color down here to get started with. And highlight that color, come over to the inspector and give it something that's worth seeing. Yeah, we just want to be able to, we're going to use white text, so I want to be able to have something in the background that you guys can see. And we'll say OK to that. And let's go over here to titles and then to text plus. And when we bring this text plus down and line it up, you'll note the little sparklies down here in the lower right hand corner. That means that it's a Fusion piece of text. So we're going to highlight that, and that brings us back over here to the text tab, and I'm going to write some stuff in here. I'm going to pause this and write some stuff in here just so that we have some text to manipulate so you guys can kind of see what's going on. Okay, so we got a little bit of text in here, and before we go anywhere, let's go up to playback, down to render cache, and make sure that our smart tab is checked here. And it is, so we can get out of that. Let's highlight our text in here and note that just like anything else, we can change the font on it to whatever you want. Arial seems to be the nice clean text for that. You can change the type of text that it is, narrow, bold, narrow, kind of like the narrow, because then we come down here to size. Let's bring it up a little bit. Bring the tracking out a little bit if you want. Kind of fill the screen and maybe bring the line spacing out just a touch where it fills everything out. Now you'll note when I did that, it left behind 3 little dots. So when I touch each one of these little dots with the mouse, it goes back to its original thing. Vertical anchoring. So we're still highlighted up here. Top anchor, bottom anchor, mid anchor, and also on any one of these anchors we have the ability to fine tune that, of course. Again, we have our little dot down here. Let's click it and go back to the beginning. Now in our justifications, whether just like on a piece of paper or in Word, we justify it to the right, justify it to the left, and then down here with that anchor too, we should be able to fine tune that guy up a little bit. So once we hit back to the center, it comes back and resets everything again. Now, direction, we're going to look at horizontal. And make sure we're still... There we go. So on the direction, is it typed in mirror now? Yes, it is. Reverse horizontal. So if we just had regular horizontal on it, of course there's no change in it from automatic because, well, it's already horizontal here. So we go over here to vertical though. Everything is going to be listed up and down vertically, which could be kind of cool, I suppose. I'm sure there's a little spot for everything. And then there's a reverse vertical, which is, you can imagine what that probably is. Line direction, top down, bottom up. Do you see what happened there? Okay, so this is from the bottom up. So if you wanted to feed your things this to be the first thing to be read, and you were feeding it from the top down, this would be the first thing read, this would be the second thing read, and so on. For now, we're just going to bring it back to the way it was. I'm going to put it on automatic because here's the next cool thing we can do, and this happens on both sides of the right on. Uh, so if we, and this is the basic thing about this text plus here. When we move this side in, it brings all the lettering in one at a time. We move that back to one here on that side, or we can do it in reverse if we decide to. So what might be cool is uh, to bring it in like this. So let's, for fun, let's put a keyframe here. And then let's bring our playhead over a little bit and bring this back to 1. Give it another keyframe. Oops. Let's see if that worked. It sure did. Okay, so let's leave that up for a minute. And let's give this another keyframe. Bink. And then bring this all the way out. And give this another keyframe. Come on. Bink. So what do we get out of this? It brought it in. Fun. And then, using its own thing, it takes it out. The exact opposite of how it was brought in. I thought that was kind of fun to show you guys. Down here we have tab spacing here and things like that. It hasn't gotten to that part of that in the lessons yet. And the advanced controls that we definitely haven't gotten there. But we will pretty soon when we get into the Fusion tab a little bit further. Okay, so that's the, coming up here, that's the text tab. And we'll be along next with the layout tab and the rest of them. Okay, see you in a second. All right, so we're going to come over here to skill 131 and back in our Fusion text stuff. And we're going to come over here to the layout tab here. Let's go back to the text real quick, make sure that we're highlighted and that we're in here. And let's take out all the keyframes that were in here and just bring it back to custom title. So that's so that we don't get all jumbled up with things. So in the text, in the layout tab here, when it says point, it's referring to the center of the very center of this here. So as we see in the beginning here, we can move it left and right, up and down. Excuse me. But we don't have a very easy way of putting it back to where it was. And they're not tied together either. So that brings it back to where it was. I accidentally hit the Z-axis tab, zoom tab, which is kind of cool, and I'll show you that here in just a second. But it'll zoom all the way back to there, supposedly where the background is, and then you can zoom all the way in. It's like a camera. You can zoom it past your site, which could make for some interesting special effects. Anyway, let's click on that. Of course, we have sizing, bigger, smaller, which might make for something interesting with the zooming. And then down here we have a perspective. Let's put these two back where they were. Come on. There's one, and there's the other. Okay, so let's come down here to rotation. And they're referring to the three-dimensional portion of this. So if we, on the slider here for the X slider, if we move this, you'll notice that it kind of moves it from front to rear or vice versa. But it's rotating on its center axis. So let's move it back like the Star Wars title. And then we can also change it on this perspective as well, if you wanted to. And then, of course, on the Z-axis as well. So full 3D there. So I want to move it back just to that and see how that runs. And it's important to note that now that we have the zoom here and we have that kind of put back a little bit, we could theoretically fly this around because all these have keyframes on them. Okay. By the way, down here, this is just merely changing the color of the background title. And you can do that. Those are keyframed as well. Might be fun. Anyway, let's put that back. And let's put all these back here because we're going to talk about the next thing. Put that back where it was. Come on. So, come on. There we go. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so the next thing to look at is on the frame here. That's going to be very similar to where we just came from in the point. And we're going to come back to the frame here in relationship to the text where we just came from, because there's some other cool stuff that came down here when we added the frame here. Like I told you guys, all these are interrelated. So when we hit frame and layout and then come back to the text, you'll notice that now we have the ability to scroll stuff around and things like that. And we'll get to that here in just a second. So from frame, we'll come to circle. And that, again, here we can move things up and down here. Let's move this side to side. Excuse me, let me put that back on 0.5. Up and down. There we go. So we can get that nice and centered if we like. The width of this, which changes the radius of the circle itself. And again, you guys can come down here. There's some different things like adjusting to fit in there. If there was more here and we came and adjusted to fit this, and there was more than one line, the top line would be bigger than the bottom line on that. Okay, so let's go back to none on this guy. And then that's the last thing on here is a path. And that's going to be an animation path. And there's some other interesting stuff that happens with text when we do that. And we'll get to that here on the next one. So let's go back to point and get ready to go look at transform, because that's going to tie in with how we're going to do stuff here with the text and in relation to the frame for the layout. So for now, let's put everything back to the way it was and make sure that it's all reset. We can do that by going to our upper right hand corner here and just hitting reset, and it brings it all the way back for everything here. Okay, so hang tough with me and we'll be right back with the next one. All right, I'm going to come up here to skill 132, which is the transformation tab in the Fusion side of things. And this, by far and away, has been one of the funnest things I've seen so far to play with. So I typed in a couple more lines just so that we can kind of see what's really happening in that. And so let's hop over here to the transformation tab. And there again, we have our spatial rotation of things, and it breaks down into characters, words, lines, and it's everything is keyframe. That's the most important thing to know about this. And you may see some things here that look an awful lot like they're manipulating text, like Word would manipulate text, fonts and sizes and stretches and things like that. But this is strictly animation based stuff. So let's start down here with the spacing. So when we're on the character side and we space it, they're talking about each individual letter. Okay, there's our little boink there, boink. And it brings it back. Now, when we say words and then we move the spacing, it moves the words apart. I don't know why it changed my text there. Let's come back to transform. And then down here to lines, we can move that up and down too. You can see where that might be handy. And let's see if it changed it again. I don't know why it doesn't allow me to keep that highlighted, but so some of the other neat things that we can do here is that we can move the pivot point around, and this starts to come in handy. For example, let's go back to characters and let's move the X rotation around. See how that's moving the individual characters on that axis? Then we can come back over here to words. See how that's moving the words, all the words. Now let's let's reset that. Now let's move the whole thing on the x-axis. I think that I keep losing my highlight here. All right, so there we have that. So let's try another experiment here. Let's go to characters, and let's change the pivot point of something a little bit here, and let's move some things around. See how it looks like it's rotating around a pivot point? Let's move that pivot point a little bit more. So when we move this around, it looks like it's kind of coming in from the side. Boink. Yeah, that's fun. Let's bring that pivot point back to 0. What did I find that was a really neat one? The lines and moving the pivot point of Z kind of big. Let's move that down a little bit. Yeah, so this would be an interesting way to fly. You can fly I moved the pivot point of Z back a little bit, and I'm just using the X-axis to fly it around and do a loop with the text. Okay, let's come over here and see what happens when we mess with the Y-axis. Kind of the same thing, kind of a ground loop there. Very interesting. And so we get to come back. Z is just the Z-axis. It's a rotation, basically, a flat rotation that's just pivoting around something else. Now we can change this back and have the rotation of Z. For example, let's change the X rotation and then see it's moving around a little bit more. Maybe we can. There we go. So we have a bigger pivot point. We have a bigger circle for the rotation. And move that back. So when we talk about the shear of things here, and we shear the X, it's basically just kind of an italic here. And we shear the Y, it's shearing the whole thing. It's the same thing for words and characters as well. If we shear them, it's just doing it individually or as a group. And then here we have the size of things, that's, we want to stretch it, or we want to stretch it topped as well. All this stuff not really meant to be so much of a manipulation of the text as a manipulation of things in the form of animation. Again, that's why we have the keyframes on some certain things, or not certain things. We have the keyframes here on everything. So anyway, that gives us an idea of how we're going to think about that down the road. And I wound up playing around with this for a while, so I had to kind of cut it short. Otherwise, this would have been an hour-long section of this little video alone. All right, so we'll see you guys in the next one, which is going to be about shading. All right, so we got a couple more here out of the Fusion setup to do left. We got the shading tab and we got the roll and scroll tab to take care of. So let's do that. No big deal here. So let's come over to shading. And there's a couple of things that we were going to look at here. So one, let me make sure that first off, my text is highlighted. Shading. There's a under properties, softness. We're going to talk about that one. Let me just open these up, and those we're going to save for later. So we can change how these things are filled and the priority of them. So when we select through these, oops, did I lose my shading? Let's go back to one. There, down here, maybe this is, there we go. So we have our fill here. We have our ability to have an outline, whether it's an interior outline or an exterior outline. And you can kind of thicken or loosen that one here. The blocked out or just all the way solid. There was a way to gradient. That was a neat little thing to play with. To assign a color, so we come down here and we click on that and we assign a color to that. We come over here, we assign a color to this one. So red and pink, yeah, that's kind of cool. There was a bunch of different ways that you can look at this here too, whether we wanted to assign it to the character. Again, we're back here with that with the full image. If we wanted to assign this gradient here for the entire thing, we can click on that. And then if we wanted to do just the text, and if we wanted to do the lines, each individual line, has the red on the bottom there. And then the words and characters should be pretty much the same thing here for that, because we haven't gotten around to messing around with the aspect ratios and the mapping angle. So I'm going to leave it on the line for now. I'm going to change the mapping angle a little bit. You see how that's rotating it from the bottom, from side to side? Okay. Then we can hit that guy and just reset it. Then mapping size, how much of it overtakes um, of the characters are on there. Again, reset that. Mapping aspect, again, that's going to be just how much is going on with that. And the mapping level. What could we do here for cool the mapping level to really change things around here? Yeah, there, I kind of like that. Full image. Drop the mapping size a little bit. Soften it up a little bit, and then take it a little off kilter, just to do something interesting there. All right, so let's go all the way back out here. Dink, dink, dink. Text. Over to solid. And down here to softness. Now, softness, how can I make this a little bigger? Well, let's just do it from here for now. Let's go back first to make sure that we have our stuff is highlighted again. Back over here to shading, down to softness. Okay, softness is going to be about, it kind of gives it a blur. And that, but it doesn't work so well on the Y if you go too far on it. Then, for example, if you wanted to increase the blur on it a little bit and then give the blur that you've done a little glow to it, it adds some light behind it, makes it a little bit stronger. Then you can kind of decide how much you want that to glow or how little based on how much softness there is. So you can really touch that around. All right, let's go back to all the start points here. And we're going to go over here to layout, and we're going to put it down to frame. Now, remember when I told you that when we go back to text here, because we're on frame, that we get some new stuff to look at here on the scrolling side of things. So we can hit the scroll or the roll or the crawl. So if we hit roll, for example, that would be this up and down. And again, all keyframeable here. I happen to think the scroll on up over here is probably a little bit better, but and you can just roll it from over here. But that's just an example of why things move around. And I'm going to go back through and reset everything here back so that we can move on to see what's next here. Roll and scroll. Okay, so next one we're going to be doing motion blur for the text. Okay, so we'll see you guys in just a second. Okay, so one of the cool things to do with text when it's moving or being animated is to add a little bit of motion blur to it. It just gives it a more real feeling. And so that's what this one is about. We're on skill 135, and we're just going to pop over here to there. And I've kind of got everything set up and ready to go. So I want to come over here first to transform and down to rotation. And I'm going to change the z-axis a little bit, and then I'm going to move the, no, I don't want to move that one around. Let's move that z-axis a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Okay, so let's start it here. All right. So we'll keyframe this. Then we're going to move it over here to the middle, or thereabouts. Then we'll move it around about halfway. And that keyframed. And then we'll move it over here to the end. Oops. There we go. And then move our Z back to where it should make it look like it was a continual motion all the way through. All right, let's play that guy. Yeah, that looks good. All right, let's play it, see how it looks. All right, that's cool. Okay, again, that was real important that I had that playback on the smart playback for the uh, thing there. Where was it? Playback, render cache, smart. So this was some big rendering here for it to make that around. My computer's pretty powerful, so it did it okay, but I'm going to pull this down so that we can do a in to out replay on that. So let's continue on here, image shading and into settings now that we've got our thing rendered here, and we want to come down here and we want to say motion blur, which will open up some options down here. A shutter angle, that's a camera thing. That's going to be on how blurry it actually gets based on what the sensor sees. So we can bring it a little bit further. Let's play this option forward. So we got a little bit of the blur on there. Let's put some more blur on there so it kind of gives an idea of how it really looks. Nice. And we'll bump our speed up a little bit here and bump our blur up a little bit more. Now this is something, it's also keyframe, so you could go from a little bit of motion blur in the beginning to a lot in the middle and then a little bit in the end here. Let's just try it one more time. I'm not going to do that right now, but yeah, that looks a lot more natural. Very cool. All right, so that's that for now, and we'll see you in the next one. All right. All right, we're getting towards the end here now. We're going to do skills 136 through 139. Starting with 136, we're going to bring in some pre-built lower thirds text title stuff and to see how we can go in and alter that stuff out. And then we'll try retiming things because there's some glitchy stuff about that. So let's come over here and, okay, let's twirl the inspector up out of our way here. Come over to the effects box and down and bring down our center reveal on here, and this should only really be about 5 seconds long. So sample text, speeds in, speeds out. Okay, this one did it. This might have been something they have fixed, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's highlight that, go up to the inspector and see what's available to change in this. So we can change the color, we can change uh, the font in it, we can change the size of the font. Go through and play that. Uh, let's and mark that, and maybe bring the size down just a touch so we can see what's happening here. And say Alt. Okay, so let's bring the size of it up a little bit just so we can see what's going on. Tracking, yeah. So we can basically change. Ooh, we can add some motion blur to it. Very cool. So let's see how that looks then. Uh, First one. Looks nice with some motion blur, split out a little bit. Okay, so let's stop here. That's kind of cool. And pick something a little bit more complex. I think I remember something being called ripple something or other in here. Random, rise, rotate. Maybe it's not in here anymore. Title. 3-line drop, that's a good one. Let's move 3-line drop over to here. And X that out, come over here. Bring that in. Oops. Bring our playhead over here. Maybe twirl that up just a little bit. Don't think we need to see the whole thing. So what happens in 3-line drop? Okay, there's lots. Okay, we can change our looks like there's several places that we can change. So whatever the top line is here, in this case, it's very hard to see. Kind of have to really zoom in to see that. And so that needs doing. We should change that color. What else can we change on here? Yeah, let's change that color a little bit. Let's make it red. Now you can kind of see it, but it's still really light. Maybe just a regular font now. Let's change that again. Regular font. Maybe even over to a semi-bold. Now we can really see that. And we can see everything else pretty well in here. What I don't see in any of this is the ability to do any drop shadows on it. Control settings. Nope. Inline offset. Yeah, and it looks like there's a lot of stuff to be playing around with. Mostly it's about color and about having other things to do with it. So let's see how that plays. Yeah, that's kind of cool. All right, so the next thing is when we came back over here to this guy here, let's and X back into that. There was it just completely overrode what was going on the bottom here. We can re-enable that clip, and we can come back up into this over to the settings, Maybe we were over here. All right, let me go find that. I'll be right back. Ah, we are in good luck here. So we're down on here on compositing here. We have our thing highlighted here, just a little fun thing to do. Is to come here and change our compositing. And one of these compositing is marked in here, I believe it's marked multiply. So when we hit that, let's see what happens here. Because I think we got to give it a chance to render out real quick. Let me pause this while it does that. Not having the effect I was looking for. Hang on. All right, so let me come from scratch and show you guys how that compositing thing works. So I'm going to grab up here and say text and bring it down on top of this clip for now. Then I'm going to come over and I'm going to say basic title, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just so we have it. And then I'm going to scrunch it together a little bit. And you'll see why I'm doing all this here in just a second. And let me bring it right there. Okay, so ordinarily speaking, you'd have the title on top of the clip. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to grab the video and bring it on top. Then we're going to come down here to the compositing. So under regular circumstances, only because I was playing around with it for a second, was it on add. So if you can come over here and say add, then you add the title into the text itself. But that's not where we're really going with this. This is where we're really going with it. So we come down and hit a very powerful thing called multiply. And there we go. And that's where you get that. And it'll play through the title in the background. We see this all the time in movies and whatnot and things like that. So there was some other stuff in this last couple of things about changing the speed of how the titles have come in because that they were short and things like that. And you can come down and I believe right click on it, and there's a way to make a new compound clip out of it. Say create, and then jump in here and say option R. Maybe it's option R. Yeah, and then break this clip down into its 3 spots where things come into by saying option B, for example. Oh, excuse me, maybe it's control B. And move it down a little bit. And say control B again. And within each one of these, let's bring it a little bit forward. Within each one of these, you'll have the option to come here again, say Control R, and change each of the timing of each one of these, just like we've done in the past. So no big deal. So if you need things to change, hold a little bit longer, just come here, hit the new compound clip thing. That'll make it so that you can adjust, break it down into 3 or 4 spots or however you need to do that. And that's really all there is to doing that. And to do the compositing thing, again, that's just a easy thing to bring it on top. I don't know where I did it. Yeah, there we go. I really like that. I'm going to be using that quite a bit. And that will pretty much conclude, actually doesn't pretty much conclude, it does conclude section 12. A little bit out of order, but I had a lot of fun with this, and we're going to be moving into a short one next, section 13, just importing projects, adding Resolve Effects Inspector, on-screen controls, applying and customizing and animating Resolve FX light rays. Okay, looks like we got some more toys to play with coming right up. All right, that's section 12. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you guys in a little bit as soon as we get this all put together.